Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet and take your profit. Find out how. PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. Adam Caplan is in the house. Well, Football at 4 on this happy hour Friday as we are getting closer to the start of NFL free agency. The Combine is next week as well. We've talked a lot. We've had really good conversations. Moshe and I had a really good conversation about free agent wide receivers. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, but we really got deep into that conversation, Adam. What's happening, my friend?
Yeah, it's interesting. Jeff and I had Greg Cosell on from NFL Films. We were doing a series of free agent reviews. Greg's tape reviews of probably about 90 free agents, and he had a great point on the show that dropped on Wednesday, I believe, about the Eagles have to decide what their identity is. Yes, they run the ball really well. Well, if you're just going to be a running offense, how deep do you need to go at receiver? Do they need depth? Yes, obviously they do. We'll get into the way that I see their team needs, because my needs might be different from others, but it's kind of the way I believe they see it. But nevertheless, do they need to add a receiver? Absolutely. But they don't need to add like 3. They definitely need to add a veteran. We cried about this before the season started. I kind of led the charge there. They had to add a veteran. They were too young there. That turned out to be correct. That was a mistake that they didn't have a veteran in there. And Rager's lack of development is clearly a problem, because if Rager had developed, Mike, you really only need to add one guy. It wouldn't be a big deal, because Quez Watkins is clearly a guy that's going to be involved, and the head coach loves him. But because Rager is not developed yet, and he may not, they're going to have to do something.
Yeah, and there's a good free agent class out there, too. I mean, that adds to it, too, is there are attractive options here, Adam. I don't know how much money they want to spend on that position in free agency, but you would think that Howie Roseman's at least going to take a look, right? He's going to kick some tires.
Yeah, we actually talked about that on that show, and we've talked about it, I don't know how much the last couple of weeks on our regular podcasts that drop on Monday or Thursday, or our free agent series with Cosell. We talked about a dozen or so receivers, so I encourage people to check that out. That just dropped on YouTube today, and we dropped on the pod version on Wednesday, so you can listen to it, you can watch it, whatever you want to do. But, yeah, there are some really good options, but the problem is you always have to understand, buyer beware. There's a reason why players make it to market. Injury, inconsistency, off the field, for whatever the case may be, age. It's rare that a clean free agent, there's nothing wrong with the player. It's rare that those guys make it to market.
Free agency is an area, and Jeff and I touched on this a little bit, but do you look at, and we're going to kind of look at some of the areas of need, the free agent needs completely different from the draft needs? Like, do you look at different positions in free agency and prioritize them differently than you prioritize draft?
So, Mike, teams will tell you that because free agency is up first, it's whatever they don't get done in free agency, they're going to go with the draft, with exception. For instance, you know going in that you're not going to get a quarterback who's unsigned for free agency that could help your football team. That's not going to happen. The only way you're going to get help in free agency is if you trade for a quarterback. Well, just so happens between 8 and 12 teams don't know who their starting quarterback is, so it's going to be hard for them to do that. So the best way to do it will be obviously to draft one. I don't, barring a big surprise, and it would be a big surprise because right now Russell Wilson's not available. Jimmy Garoppolo's not on their list. And Deshaun Watson's situation is totally unresolved, and you can't count on it. And they would have extreme company if teams feel comfortable about trading for him. They're going to be over half a dozen teams involved with trying to acquire Deshaun Watson. So the best way to do it, if they're going to look at quarterback, would be in the draft.
Eagles team needs as we get ready for free agency here. How do you kind of rank what Howie Roseman needs to fix in the free agent class that we have here this year?
It's funny because on the show that dropped Thursday morning, this is funny. So Jeff and I, we did our rankings. He's been on the safety bit for 3 years. One time he got super emotional over it. He literally I thought he was going to go through the computer screen. He was so mad. Well, this was like a year ago. He kind of, I get it, and he's right. the Eagles have treated the safety position not quite like the linebacker position. They clearly don't care about it, but the safety position, they've just gone the veteran route. It hasn't worked at all with Kevon Wallace, and it probably won't. He's basically a fourth safety special teamer. The thing that they miss is he can't help you in coverage. And in today's NFL, you cannot draft a box safety. It doesn't work. But I would not put safety at number one. I'm putting number one at defensive end. Why do I say that? Brandon Graham, 33 years old, coming for torn Achilles. Nobody has any idea how much he can contribute. They only know one thing, that Josh Sweat will be a starter. That's all they know. Ryan Kerrigan's up. I don't expect him back. Derek Barnett is up. I would be very surprised if he came back. So they only know one thing. Josh Sweat is a starter. And remember, Howie Roseman has always believed in a rotation. And we're going to have some notes on how Gannon's mindset is probably been more advanced for free agency. We're going to drop that. We have a little bit more intel, and I think I got to get a little bit more confirmation at the Combine when I'm there next week. But we're going to have something that's going to drop on our Thursday show once I get confirmation. A little bit further thoughts on what people around the league tell me about Gannon, who helped us last year. But they need another DN. They have to get a young guy. Now, if they get that in, Mike, who could eventually start over Graham this season or next season in 23, you could bring Teron Jackson along a little bit more. But the fact of the matter is they have to get another DN. That would be number one for me. And then number two is the layup. They don't have a starting safety right now under contract. The two veterans are unsigned. At most, one would come back, and it could be both go. We do believe Marcus Epps will be a starter, but they don't know who's going to start, quite frankly, right now at safety.
And then, you take a look at some of the lower – I don't want to say lower, but defensive end, though, is a spot we do envision that they would take a guy in the first round, right? They would take a guy.
Remember now. They have 3 picks, right? We felt that they're not going to keep all 3. They'll keep 2, and they'll trade one of those picks, and it's going to be, by the way, let me explain the way they're going to do this. This is the way it's going to happen, if it does happen, which I believe will happen. What they do is they have what are called trade calls about 3 to 4 weeks before the draft. They go, hey, if our guy's off the board, we're going to want to trade out. And they have these contingencies with different teams. Like, for instance, I'm told they had a trade worked out in 2019. The pick that was taken for Arcega-Whiteside, they had a trade worked out with the Jets, and the Jets backed out because they wanted Mecole Hardman, who went to the Chiefs. And once the Jets didn't get him, I think they traded elsewhere. So the Eagles unfortunately took J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. But so you know going up what you're going to do. So here, if their board is hit, let's say of the 32, you have to there's got to be 32 picks in the first round, but you only truly have 12 to 15 that are true first round grades. If their board gets hit for that, what is it, 15, 16, and 19? They trade out of 19 and they go get a first for next year, however they need to do it. I think they'll wind up only making 2 picks.
Now, on that real quick, defensive end, I agree with you. I think it's a need end that they would draft. Do you think if 15 and 16, their top 2 players on the board were both DNs, would they go back-to-back DNs?
Yes.
Okay.
Because of their philosophy. I don't know.
I agree with you, Adam. I think it's an interesting thing. If, let's say the kid from Michigan, Ojabo's there, and then the kid from Georgia, Walker, if they're both there, do they just take them both?
Well, here's what I think they would do. Let's say Stingley's there, the corner from LSU, and a DN, and they've already got their DN with the first pick. They're going to go corner.
Okay.
That is my third need. They have to do it. Steven Nelson's up. We'll have some intel on Steven Nelson next week when we drop one of our shows on either Monday or Thursday. But they need to get someone who could run and who has size. And Darius Slay is now 31 years old. Let's not forget that, Mike. They don't have a number 2 corner or really a number 3 outside corner, so they have to do something. That is number 3. Their first 2 picks, if I had to guess, obviously we're a long ways away from the draft. I think it'll be DN and corner. There's zero chance of Sauce Gardner. People keep asking me this question. I keep saying the same thing. He is the top corner for this draft, and there's everybody else.
Any shot in your mind, Adam, that they take calls or make calls about Fletcher Cox? Because that's a position they need some depth, right?
We explained this in December when there were rumors about Cox. I was like, it just can't happen because the cap, the dead money was so bad, they would have to restructure all the contracts to make it to even take the dead money, and they couldn't do it. They could. It's more palatable now. They could use one of their. They've got 2 post-1 June post-1 designations. You could do that with trades, and yes, I do believe there's a possibility. And we know for a fact they had talks with their teams about Cox. It just was never going to happen. But what they could do is take those talks and see if those teams are still interested. And that, by the way, that's another need for this team. I have wide receiver, by the way, of my 4th need. They have no depth at the position. We know that. They need outside receivers. They don't need a slot. You don't necessarily need to draft a slot receiver. They can, but if Rager's on the team, he can do that. There are teams that have committees by the slot. The Rams do that. Cooper Kupp's their top slot, but Robert Woods will play the slot when he comes back. And then the 5th is D tackle. Yes, they need, whether Cox is traded or not, I believe this will be his last year. And then
last year here.
Yeah, I do believe if he's here, this will be his 22 will be his last year, just based on reality. And then people are going to laugh at this. How do I not have linebacker number 1? It's not what I would do. It's what I think they will do and the way they see it. It's a combination of that. Obviously, could you at least upgrade at 1 linebacker spot? But they need depth too, obviously. But remember, they're a nickel team. They don't play 3 linebackers. There are 2, and sometimes they're 1 linebacker team.
Couple quick questions based on these rankings. What do they? I know Sirianni said that Watkins is one of the best number 2 receivers that
he could be. Yeah,
that he'd been around.
Yeah.
Do they view him as an outside guy or a slot guy? What do they want?
He's outside, and when he's lined up inside as a vertical slot. Yes, it's a good question because they don't believe in Greg Ward. Clearly, this coaching staff they used him, did a good job on pressing the service late, though we had a couple drops. John Hightower's back on the roster, but only for now. The only thing they know is Watkins and Smith have clearly defined roles. Rager's role's up in the air, and that's all that they have. They just don't know. So yeah, receiver. They don't necessarily, again, to move this along here, they don't necessarily need to draft a slot, but they have to have some guys who can play it.
The other guy, you mentioned Fletcher Cox. What do they view Milton Williams as?
I asked them about, they love him. See, what they're trying to figure out, and this probably will be more of their discussions in the offseason, particularly if they trade Cox. If they trade Fletcher Cox, then is Milton Williams a starter? They don't know that yet. They have to, that's an ongoing discussion. Remember, he played some end. He's better. He clearly is better off playing inside, to be honest with you. He could play outside, but you'd rather him using his interior explosion, playing on the inside there. Right now, let's look at it. It's Hargraves is a stud. There's no doubt that was a great signing. Cox, who could be traded. Milton Williams, Ridgeway's up. I don't expect him back. And Tui Pelotu didn't play. Marvin Wilson's just a guy. And they don't have any depth. The thing with this football team is, Mike, they have a lack of depth and competition at so many positions. It's a minor miracle that they got in the playoffs. And I know their schedule was very favorable at the end of the season, but hey, they beat who was on their schedule. The roster needs a lot of work.
Last guy, you mentioned linebacker. I think we all agree. What do they think of Davion Taylor? Do they want him to be a starter?
Remember, they don't really play base, so a starter for them is nickel. And they believe Davion Taylor could wind up being a nickel linebacker for them. They really believe that. Sean Bradley's only special teamer. Patrick Johnson is a Sam. He might take over for Jannard Avery, who's up. They like Avery, though. We'll see what happens. We'll know more about that next week. But, yeah, the only problem is Taylor's simply not been healthy. Apparently, from what we're told, his practice tape was good before he got hurt. The limited playing tape was really encouraging. He really made a jump. The problem is he's been hurt so much this past year.
All right. Now, the Eagles have some of their own free agents. Nobody really high profile, but you got, I guess, the 2 running backs, Scott and Howard.
Yep.
Then you've got the tight end position because Rodgers, they don't have really anybody else. So that's something. Barnett and Singleton and the 2 safeties, and then a couple of lesser guys.
All right, so let's talk running back. Boston Scott is restricted. The low tenor is probably going to be around $2.1 million. That's just too much to bring him back for. As I explained on our last show that Jeff and I dropped on Thursday morning, you could bring him back at a lower number, probably half of it, less than half of that, and then you could fully guarantee it to throw him a bone. But you're not going to pay. If Boston Scott had a more significant role, you could justify $2.1 million. You can't. based on the role that would. And then the Eagles really only play 2 running backs when everybody's healthy. They don't believe in using a third back because Jalen Hurts is part of that run game. Greg Ward, he won't be back. I don't see it. Jason Kroom towards ACL, he won't be back most likely. And then Nate Herbig is a tough one. That's a really tough one because he's got great versatility. He's more of a guard than center, could play both. It's been a great story development as an undrafted free agent. Finally got himself in decent shape. It's a good player. I mean, for what they need him for, they may tender him. We'll learn more about this, but that's of all their restricted free agents. You know what's really odd, Mike? They have more restricted free agents on offense than unrestricted. It's very odd. I've not seen that before with this team.
Yeah, that running back thing is because they could draft a guy, right? You could just draft a guy and basically take over for Jordan Howard. Oh, and they have Kenny Gainwell here still too. Yes. Oh wait,
I forgot. My bad. Jordan Howard. As we explained on this last show, you could wait till August, and if he's available, great. If he's not, move on. Really revived his career. Looked great, but unfortunately got hurt again. They have a role. The thing that it's kind of a weird thing. He's good. He's their best pass protection back, but he has zero explosiveness in that role. And that's what you just mentioned, Gainwell. Gainwell's going to have a bigger role than he did last season. I don't know what happened the second half of the season. It was weird, his usage, because you saw how impactful he was in the first half. So I do believe it'll be the Miles Sanders and Gainwell show, and the third back it could be Scott at a lower number or Howard or just somebody else. I don't know if they would draft anyone. We'll see about that.
Yeah, I think so. What would you say percentage chance Barnett is back?
I don't put numbers out, but I would say low. Okay. I would say low. And if it is, it's a 1-year deal. That
you think he's going to have
be like a Nelson Aguilar situation? He's too frustrating for them. It just didn't work out. He's not a bust. It's not even close to a bust. He's productive.
Yeah,
at times, but he's what I put him. I call these guys disappointments. He's in the disappointment area. He just never became the player they thought he would be.
You think he'll have a market? Like teams will be calling him?
When I look at my free agency file, which I just finished today, at the end, he will, because it's not a great group at the end. It's deep, but there are a lot of older guys. Mm. It's not a very good group. No. Now, it's good for the draft, by the way. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I know fans keep asking us about Agba. Emmanuel Agba is a good player, but he's going to cost a lot of money. I don't see that one, but the good thing about Agba is he could stand up and play in the 34. The Eagles do play multiple fronts, but that would probably be out of their price range as of now, but we'll look further at that.
All right, football at 4, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Free agency, March 16th is when we get that started. So this is the last Friday of February, and then the month of March, which means we're getting within 15 days of NFL free agency. Adam, I can't wait. You're going to the Combine.
Two things, Mike. It actually starts on the 14th. In fact, once we get to the 14th is the open negotiation period where
legal tampering.
Right. The league calls it open negotiating, but I get it. The deals are done by Wednesday, so when the opening free agency is so boring because all the deals are done. It's kind of funny how when they put this rule in, it really made the true opening on the 16th, the first day of free agency, the new league year, very boring. But the big thing is, I got to tell you, this diehard Sixer fan cannot wait for Harden tonight. I'm a big NBA guy as it is. I don't just watch the Sixers, and I was watching Boston last night. They're better than the Sixers. I know people don't want to hear that. As a Sixer fan, I hate to say it. I've watched them probably play 20 times. They've completely turned their season around. They're the best defensive team in the NBA. The Boston is no joke, and they share the basketball. They're really good folks. The Boston is right now the hottest team in the NBA.
Yeah, 538.com has them winning the title.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow, that's scary. I hope not. But we'll see. We'll see how Harden mixes in. I cannot wait.
By the way, that opening 14th is a Monday, so you're going to have the weekend, and then on Monday, boom, the flush of free agents will begin, and they'll all be announced officially on March 16th.
That's right, and the way that I report them is, barring a breakdown in negotiations, Mike Gill will sign with 97.3 ESPN South Jersey.
If they're lucky.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
You got it.
All right, Adam, have a great weekend, man.
You too, man. Thanks.
All right, Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. That's Adam Caplan from InsideTheBirds.com.